Hi, all you lovely creative people. This is June from Oak Witch Lane Designs, and today I'm going to show you how I made this beautiful wreath using paper clay in some molds. I love to find different ways to use the molds that I've already purchased, and I've been wanting to make a picture type frame for a long time. So I had this idea to put it around a circular form, which I will explain to you and give you links down below, and make a wreath for the holidays. And after the holidays, I will be taking off all this greenery and hanging it just as it is without it. So, without further ado, let's get started. To get started with this project, you're going to need your molds, the paper clay, and I just have a piece of a silicone mat here. You could use wax paper or parchment paper to lay down some of your molds on after you create them. There are some molds in this project that you have to lay down flat and let them dry for a day or two. And once you make them, and I'll show you how to make a mold, we're using the paper clay. You make them, you lay them down, and then after a couple of hours, maybe 8, 10 hours, you flip them over and let them dry on the back for less time, because the paper molds have a way of warping, and you don't want them to warp. You want the bottoms to be flat. So if they do warp, you can put a little weight on them. I use whatever jars. These are fresh, so I don't want to put it on because it'll ruin the design. But you just, once you flip it back so that the top side is up, you can put one of these jars down on top of it just to try to flatten it out. Because, like I said, some of these molds have to be dry before you attach them to your wreath form. These two that I made up here are going to be curved and shaped around the leaf, around the wreath form, so they have to still be wet. Okay. Second thing is the paper clay. When you go out and you buy paper clay, now some people use polymer self-hardening clay, polymer clay, self-hardening clay. I haven't used those products. I think I used DAS at one point, but um, it wasn't working well for me. I use the creative paper clay, and one thing I want to tell you is if you go online and you're shopping for it, I have found that Amazon seems to be a very good price. Or if you can get to Hobby Lobby or Michael's, but make sure when you're comparing prices that you're doing the same ounces. The 8-ounce package and the 16-ounce package looks pretty much the same online, and you're thinking you're getting a deal because it's very inexpensive, but you're really only getting 8 ounces. So be very careful of that. Make sure you're getting you're comparing ounces to ounces. Okay. The three molds that I use for this project so far anyway are the Baroque Swirls, the Fleur de Lis or Fleur de Lis, however you want to say it, and the Thornton scroll right here. And okay, I don't, some words about molds. I have left a link in Amazon for these three particular molds, and I'm just going to mention shop around. Okay, you might be able to get better prices than what I got at Amazon, and I suggest that you shop around and see if you can get better prices um, for your molds. The difference, these are all PRIMA redesigns with PRIMA. The light gray molds, the ones that come light gray, are very, very flexible. But these molds, the darker gray, aren't as flexible. And I find that I'm having a harder time getting my molded material out of these than I do with these. And I'll demonstrate that when I show you how to fill the molds with paper clay. Okay, now what you have to do ahead of time is you have to make the following molds and let them dry flat, because you're going to take them and glue them on the wreath form. And on this mold, you have to make two of these corresponding, and also two of these, the big guy in this mold, two of them. Lay them down flat, let them dry. Now let me just take some of these molds out of here. Another word about molds that I wanted to talk to you about before. Getting the molds can run to be a little expensive as the initial investment. So I have tried to find different ways where I could use my molds. This is one way. I know I've made a turkey on one of my videos using this particular mold, these as the feathers in the background. There's a video, you can look at it in somewhere where all my videos are kept. I have decorated masks with these, and I'm also going to be decorating a plain lamp I bought. If you like these kind of molds, they originally, I think, were made for decorating furniture. I'm not really decorating that much furniture, but there's a lot of different ways that you can use these molds. Picture frames, I've made masks. Like I said, you can even make a turkey. So really, the sky's the limit as far as your imagination, so that these can be cost effective. They're decorative and they're generic enough where you could use them for different things. Another point is that, say you just want this area of the mold, this area right here, and you don't want all of this stuff. When you make the mold in the paper clay, you can cut it off. Just cut it off. If I only wanted this area right here, I would just take my X-Acto knife. I'm not going to do it now because I need these, but I would just cut off right here and just have this little swirl. So you don't have to use the mold in its entirety when you unmold it. You can cut off pieces of it and use it here, there, whatever you're designing. Okay, so let me show you. Yes, let me show you how I made one of those. Now, when I store these, I put cornstarch on them just simply because this especially this light gray one, it seems to pick up, it's sort of sticky. It picks up every piece of dirt and dust, and I just like it better because then you can just brush it off. Now, I've been using this mold quite a bit, so it doesn't have cornstarch, and I have found that with the light gray molds, there is a difference. With the light gray molds, I don't need as much cornstarch in the mold to, what do I have here? Sorry, cornstarch in the mold to get it to release. I try to fit the piece of paper clay, and most of the time I go overboard and I have to scrape it off, but that's okay. That's what this is about. Okay. You push it in the mold, push and spread, push and spread. Get it into the grooves of your mold. Make sure that all the grooves of your mold are covered with the clay. I'm sorry, am I shaking again? Oh, gosh. I'm going to try to be a little bit more gentle. Then just take your thumb and pull off the extra paper clay. Move the mold around so it's easier for you to do this. I find going up with my thumb is the easiest. You work it and you figure it out how is best for you. Sometimes it pulls off from the side. Now I know this is light clay with, it's like gray on gray. So it's probably not the easiest, but you can see the technique that I'm doing is just squishing it in the mold and pulling off the top, going around, not trying to get it all neat the first time around. And I'll probably show you with the darker mold in a little bit. But first I want to get this thing started because there's more things to talk about. Now, when you unmold one of these, sometimes it's a little rough around the edges. If it's one of those that you're going to have to dry, flat. When it's dry, you take your X-Acto knife and just cut it, and it comes right off very easily. Now, people have been using two-part resin to fill their molds. I do not have any experience using two-part resin for this. I've watched videos. They seem to come out very nicely, and they're pretty stiff, and they don't break as easily as these paper clay molds. The difference is it's a whole different set of skills. You have to figure out when it's dry enough for you to pull out of the mold, because on the ones that you have to bend around, I'm not quite sure how to do it with the two-part resin. You might have to heat it up with a heat gun to try to get the resin to bend after it's dried. It's a whole different skill. The good thing about it is that it doesn't chip, I believe, as easily as these. They are more durable, but I'm going to try to be very careful. And once this thing is up on the wall, there will be no problem with it. The turkey that I've made, I've packed away. So far, so good. It's lasted. It's not, it's not abused or anything else like that. And I'm pretty gentle with it. That's the only drawback that I can see to the paper clay. Now, what I do sometimes is I take my ruler and I just scrape over the top of it to try to make it as even in the mold as possible. See if there's any divots that I have to fill in. Little pieces here and there. And then I'm going to unmold this one. Another thing is I keep my paper clay wrapped in not wrapped, in a plastic bag, an airtight plastic bag. And when I'm not using it, I keep it in the refrigerator to prevent it from drying out. So, let's see. The way I unmold it is you turn it upside down. I could use a little bit of room. Let's see if I can get this one up without ripping it. Okay, move that over. I just flop my mold down. See, that when you don't put the cornstarch, it's like a magnet for everything. And I start. Okay, this is the wrong end, because if I'm going to start trying to get the tip out, that's harder. So I'm going to start with the bulkier part of the mold, which is this part. And I'm pushing it back, gently pressing down, keep pushing back. You can't see what I'm doing. Oh, we got the tip out. Okay. So with these, like I said, much more flexible, much easier to do that. So now let's put this on the side for a second, because I want to show you how far I've gotten on my wreath form. Now this is the second time I've done this, because the first time I tried to do it on air and it doesn't work very well, because lining this piece up with this one diagonally on a diagonal line, not diagonally, on the diagonal line, was very difficult to do online. So I decided to do it offline and show you, because again, these are the pieces I told you to mold and let dry, which I did. Now, I'm going to demonstrate this using a smaller hoop, an embroidery hoop, so you can see how you can get these directly across from each other. I also painted them black, obviously. I'll show you the molds. See? They're there. I also painted them black because my finish is going to, it's going to help my finish seem more rich, and I'll explain that more when we get to finishing. Now, the way I have found to make sure that I have this across the diagonal line is to take my circle and decide what is one point. The point that I am going to attach, and I already did that. Let me flip this around. I've attached one of these hanger things to it. I put it in with little tiny nails, but I also put glue down. I don't know, can you see it there? You can see it. I also smashed my finger, so hammering was not something we were going to do online. So you determine, and I would put in my hanger piece, at least that one, prior to me doing all of this work, because you don't want to be hammering on this when your paper molds are on, because it may crack these little pieces that are hanging off. Now these might crack anyway, and there's nothing that I can do about that except try to treat it as gently as humanly possible, which is another reason why I painted it off screen, because trying to get it and holding it one hand and leaning it, it was a little like a contortionist, but we got that done. Okay, getting back to the diagonal. You take the point that you are saying is the top of your circle, and you line it up with one of these lines here, any which one, it doesn't really matter. You line it up, and the way to make sure that your bottom is exactly in line is, especially with one of these mats that have different colors, you count out. So here it's on this, here it's right here, and to make sure that this is straight down from it, I'm looking at this line here, and I'm going to this side and this side. And do you see this slice of gray that's over here, the slice of light gray? The way to make sure that this is exact center is to make sure these two slight slices of gray show the same amount on either side. They're the same exact shape, only flipped. And that way you can determine which is your top and which is your bottom of your piece. It's the easiest way I've found to do it. If you don't have a mat like this, you can draw lines, like a straight line and perpendicular line, and then measure off this cross line some increments, whether you do it in an inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, and just put dots and try to visualize that this space right here against your dot that you made here, maybe you want to draw another straight line, is the same amount of space on either side. And that way you know that this bottom right here is exactly in line with the top. Okay, now getting back to working with this, and I'm going to flip it around this way. I know it's black and I know it's hard to see. That's going to be okay. It's not going to stay black, although black would be very pretty. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these molds that I made, and I just made one of them online, and I don't know why hair got caught in it. Sorry, here we go. Hair, please get out of my mold. Okay, and I am going to wrap it, and this is why this one cannot be dried before. I am going to wrap it around this piece. I am bending it to go around this piece, and this is sticking up, and that's perfect. Okay, now of course I didn't put any glue down. This particular instance I'm going to use fabric tack, and I have to open up my fabric tack. I'm going to see it lands right around here. Just put it on the side. Now I'm being very gentle because this is just wet and I don't want to ruin the design of the mold. And I know that some piece over here, thank you for the web, some piece over here is going to be attaching somewhere over there. So just put a dab of glue on that too. Ow, sorry. Oh, sorry. Thank you for the web again. Here. And I'm putting it under and over. try to get this piece to stay on. It's this wet paper clay is not, it's not exactly sticky in its wet form. It gets stickier as it dries. And I want this piece to stay up, so I'm pushing it back a little bit. This piece is going to wimp out on me, but that's okay. This piece that's attaching underneath, just smudge it a little. I don't know if smudge is a word, but it is right now, to have it hold on. Now, once this dries, this will hold on much better. It's because it's wet and slippery. And there you go. Can you see where it is? And also by painting it black, I'm sort of helping you see the difference of where the moles are going. Okay? That's one. Let me, is that the exact same? Let me get the other one and put it over here. Okay. Okay, this is where it's going. Putting a little fabric tack down. I've tried using hot glue on the first time around. Me and hot glue just don't get along. And also this gloss heavy gel. Now this is really a good medium to stick things down with. If it was like flat on the mask, that was really good stuff, because once that dries, it doesn't, you know, it's solid. Okay. And now I have to add a little glue. I just don't want to ruin anything. Let me try to get a little glue. Trying to get a little glue on this piece down here. You can't see it, so I'll just put it on my finger and try to get some glue down there to get the little end to stick where I want it to stick. A little, there we go. Come on, buddy. Stick. Stick, stick, stick. Not to my finger. That's not where we're going with this. Okay. All right. You know what? It would be easier if I just did this. Now I'm smushing it so that the design is no longer apparent. You know, I'm messing up the design, but underneath it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to see this part of it. And I don't, as long as it's close to where it's supposed to be, and it's not really, because I want it up like that, we will get it to stick later when this mold dries and I can touch it a little bit more. I think I can get it to, now it's really being a pain. So hold on, we're going to go in again. You see, not all of this is so easy. I mean, it's easy, but it's, I don't know what to describe it as. Okay. Always one works out better than the other. Okay. And then try to make sure that you're lining them up on the wreath form the exact same way. Now you will see, and I think you can see, that there is cracks right here in this mold. That's fine. That is fine. Once this dries, I'm going to show you how you can fix those cracks if they bother you. Okay? Don't worry about it, because also with all of the paint that's going to be going on this thing, you're not really going to see it or notice it, or it's going to stand out. So I'm going to go and do the other side of this off screen. I'm going to wait for these to dry. Now, as they're drying, I'm going to be fiddling with them a little bit. So it's something that you can walk away from, but every once in a while, you come back and you look at it to make sure that everything is drying the way you want to. Now this one is on here a little bit more. I may have to add more glue, but I'm going to wait for these to dry and I'll show you some other things I do to make sure that they stay on if there's any parts that are coming that look like they're coming off and things like that. So I'll see you in a few. I realized in the first part of this video that I didn't talk about a few things that I think are important. One is glues and the other is the wreath form. Now this was a 16-inch diameter MDF, which is medium dense fiberboard that I purchased at Michael's. There are different wreath forms that you can get there. And originally I had a little wire form that was flat and I threw it out because I didn't think I would be using it, which was me being silly. Okay. Um, so that's what this particular thing is. Now, if you have one of those metal wreaths that are curved, these would work on it, but for me, for my aesthetic, you would probably have to wrap the wire with some kind of ribbon, uh, but it would, something that you can just wrap around, maybe put some fabric stiffener on it so it stays on there, and then lay these pieces on top of it. If it's the ones that are shaped like it has a curved shape. I'm finding that well, for my project, for what I wanted to do, was I just wanted the smallest amount of thickness going this way that I could find that was sturdy, and Michael's happened to have it. Because although this is a wreath form and I'm going to be probably putting it on the inside of my door with some greenery on it, I haven't quite figured out all how I'm going to decorate it just yet. I will as we go along. You can, what I've been seeing a lot of are people just hanging empty picture frames on their walls, and like, especially if they use that goldy bronze color or just gold, whatever color you want. Could also be good with silver if you have a little bit of a darker background wall, where they're hanging these picture frames without any pictures or pretty frames and just hanging them up, which you can do with this also. You can, once it's done, determine all different ways of how you want to hang it. If you want to put little um, those little circle eyes, whatever you call it, screws over here and here, and hang it with a cord, that's fine. You could put the cord straight across if you like that look. That's fine. I put the hanger already on the back simply because I wasn't sure how I wanted to hang this piece. So I figured let's get that up first because, as I said, you can't hammer into this. Now, if you're screwing something into this, you can do that because you could start the screw with the little drill and then just do it. That would not traumatize these paper molds at all. So that's different options of how you can use this. If you don't want to circle, what I've done quite a bit is, and I've done it a couple of times, was I take a canvas, or is whatever. I take a canvas that you buy, with the one that has the wooden stretches, and cut out the canvas material. You could save the canvas material for other projects if you want. And I just use that as a frame. I used it for my raven and also for one of mask pictures I've made. They're very sturdy and they're a little bit wider, but you can still do the same type of effect with it. Also, these are the molds I use. I have other molds. You can do all sorts of effects, which I believe I'm going to be doing next. I don't know if I'm going to be doing an online tutorial about how I take one of those those canvases, cut out the canvas, and use it with a different mold, to make a very pretty uh, picture frame, very ornate. If you're into very ornate things, this is an inexpensive way to go, and also a way to use your molds in more than just one or two projects. Okay, saying that. Now, I have all sorts of glue. I can't even begin to tell you all the different glues that I have currently. I basically use fabric tack all the time because it's my favoriteest glue in the world. It's very versatile. You can use it for a whole bunch of different things, not just on fabric. I like it. I know people who do paper crafts also use this because there's no if very. I don't think there's any water in it, so it doesn't warp the paper. I also have been, and stop with the alsos, getting a lot of Gorilla Glue products. I use their Super Glue CA glue an awful lot. The gel medium, love that. I have their wood glue. I just bought their clear glue for the pedestal project that I did, and I'm really liking the qualities of their glues. And now we're coming to the Liquitex, and this is gloss heavy gel. You don't have to get gloss. You can get matte. You can get whatever kind of heavy gel product. These are, it's an acrylic medium, and these are very good to use almost like a plaster with depth because they have some, they're like whipped cream. I don't know. I don't decorate cakes. I just eat them. Uh, Not whipped cream, icing cream. And if you need something that's going to fill it, because the two pieces don't fit flushly against each other, because again, these have all sorts of designs, mountains and valleys. As an example, I got a little crazy while I was doing this. I molded another one of these pieces. Well, because I was really trying to mold this piece and I get all backwards, so I molded it wrong. So I figured, oh, okay, let me see how it would look over here. So I really like how this looks coming over, and because I like the different depth to it, I like different levels of the design. So to get this to stay down, because I'm putting it right over this area that has a lot of indents in it, I just used this and sort of like plastered it on here. I don't know which glue. I know I should. I don't know which glue that I would recommend for what you're doing. If you're just doing all flat pieces and not trying to curve them and not needing some maybe some like little filler, because this also acts like a little filler, I guess you can go even with your PVA white glue. It'll take a while to dry, and that's okay. You just have to have patience. I'm not expecting you to have all the different types of glues, and this is just some of them. I have more glues all over the place that I do. But if you were buying just one for these type of projects, and most of the projects that you're deciding to do can lay flat as they're drying, I would go with the Liquitex Heavy Gel Medium, Gloss, Matte, whichever one you can get, because once this thing dries, it really dries very, very intense. You can't get the piece off. You'd have to ruin the piece to get it off. So I just wanted to talk to you about wreath forms and some glue. I'm going to be adding more of these pieces. See, I made the molds, so I can be adding more of these pieces around. And once these all dry, I will come back and show you what I'm going to be doing for here and also here, the four corners, okay? I'm just adding. I'm having so much fun. I'm just adding pieces. And of course, if you make a mistake and you don't want to put a molded piece because you don't feel like putting it somewhere else, you just throw it there. But I'll be back in a little bit. So here's the piece with all of the scrollies that I put here all around. I added, besides the four I was going to show you that I did on these sides here, after putting this piece in, I added this, and then I also added, and I'm trying to hold it very gently because I really don't want any of these pieces to break off. I added a piece here and here going the same way by putting some glue on top and putting the end and squishing it under here. I also put this fleur-de-lis here, and I put one here between the two scrolls, like that's on this side. I hope that's making sense. Before I am going to put the fleur-de-lis on because it's one of the dark gray molds, and I want to talk to you about that for a little bit. But before I do that, in the to save some time, save some time. You see, some of these are coming off a little bit. To save some time, this one's coming off. So what I'm going to do before I even begin, what I was going to do is I'm going to make sure this thing stays on. And for right now, this one right here, which one is it? I think it's this guy. Well, it's going to be hard to get the glue in there. So let's see if I can use a little of this wood. No, no, I told you I was using this glue. So I have all sorts of glues here. I'm trying to minimize, if you want to do this project, how much you would have to buy as far as glues is concerned. So I'm just going to take my palette knife and try to slip a little of this heavy gel underneath. And then I'm going to flip it over very gently, because what I want to do is what I call making like a little slurry with the paper clay. They usually do this when they're working with regular clay, is by taking some clay and mixing it with water. I think they use with regular clay. I'm going to use some wood glue. And I just want to add a little to all of these areas where these things attached. So I'm going to do that first. Let's see if it works. Just add, this is a little of the paper clay. Adding a little of the wood glue. Oops, probably a little too much, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. I'm just trying to get it so that it's a very softy, jelly type paste. And the wood glue, I feel confident using the wood glue because paper is wood. Somewhere along the line it was wood. I'm just mixing it together. It's sloppy. Have a little bit of a cold, so I'm hoping that you can hear me properly. And I just want to get it so that it's nice and mushy. There's no measurements here. It's just go with what you feel like. A blob of this and a blob with that. And you just want to get it softer and mushier. Might even wet my fingers over there. I have my water over there just to get it, because this is making it look very grainy, which is fine. I just want it to be able to stick. So I'm taking little pieces of it and just adding it in the back to the areas that I attached the ends of those swirls to. I think it was on the Thornton medallion mold. And I just want to make sure that there's real good contact. No one is going to see the underside of this. And if they do, well, that's okay too. You can try to make it a little bit neater, which I will probably do when I'm off the air. Oops, we just lost something. Okay. So I'm adding a little bit of this mixture. Now I have to say that the wood glue made this pretty grainy. I've never tried it with wood glue before, so I'm not sure. I think it'll dry fine. So everywhere I had one of those scrolls and the scroll ends, which really narrowed down, I'm just putting a little of this type paste on it just to make sure that there's like some kind of definite secure bond. This one keeps moving because I just glued it. Oh, that's okay. This one was cracked a little bit around the end when it came around, so this will stabilize it a little bit more. Now, the reason why I'm doing this now before I put my last two molds on is because I want to get, like I said, a little bit of a head start, because, oh, and I'm just dipping my hand in some water. I want to get a head start on this thing drying. Now, I know that there's some people who paint these before the mold is dry, before the molded piece is dry. I like to wait. I really do. I prefer that the molds dry entirely, and they will take a couple of days to dry in their entirety. So well, see, this one's well, okay, it's moving because it's the glue, this heavy gel medium, it doesn't glue right away. It takes a little bit time to dry. And my last piece over here. And I'll probably go back and try to smooth these off a little bit more, but I just wanted to show you that I am trying to add a little bit of extra strength to these pieces that might be a little bit more fragile, because on the inside, when you curve the end on the inside, it's sort of misshapen it and made it a little bit more fragile. And that one came off. Okay. Oh, that's so what we're going to do right now. Let's move that over here. Let's see, what should I take? The fabric tack? Well, you know what? I'm just going to leave it because this will adding a little bit more since it came off in its entirety. Putting it down here. Putting it down. I'll fix the back. Well, let's see. How do we have it down? Okay, I'll fix the back later. Now, if you see any of that stuff that you just, the slurry stuff that you just put through on the front, and I see it in a few places, just take it off with your, just take it off with the palette knife or a paintbrush or something like that. Okay. All right. So, I made one of the fleur de lis, or fleur de lis, or whatever you want to call it. And I already made one because I'm going to make another one here in front of you. I'm taking some of this stuff, the gel, heavy gel, and I'm just putting it pretty heavy on here. Because I want to make sure, since there's a lot of valleys in that mold, that this will stick. Then I'm putting it on, making sure as much as I can that I'm doing it the same way as I did it up on top. And what I'm doing is I'm lining these up with the things underneath, making sure it's straight. And then I happen to have some Q-tips hanging around, so I can take some of this glazed medium off from the edges here. And I'm pressing down gently. I'm not pressing down firmly because I don't want to ruin my mold. Okay. So let's put this on the side for a second and let's make the last piece of the puzzle here, guys. The last, or ladies or guys, ladies and gents, the last piece. I'm finding I'm having a very hard time with this this mold. It's not coming out as smoothly as I would like. So I dusted it again with cornstarch. There comes a point in time, like with the light gray molds, that I just dust them with cornstarch, just basically to keep the junk from, you know, dust and everything from getting on them. But this one has not been unmolding as well as the light gray ones. So I don't know, I'm probably gonna see, I have a silicone spray that I use for my candles, my candle molds. Maybe I'll have to try to spray some on that. I think the thing is, I think it's food safe. I'm not 100% sure. I don't want to be spraying when I use this. Okay, when I use the spray, I spray my molds outside with the silicone because I really don't want to be getting that stuff all over the house. So I'll have to see if this mold continues to give me a problem with just the cornstarch, then I will definitely try the silicone spray on it. Here's another little thing. I don't know if I did it before in the earlier videos. I wet my ruler and I wet the top of the mold. And then I just drag my ruler across very gently. Okay. And pushing back in on the mold, and like here it looked like it the paper clay left a little bit, but on the ends I'm trying to push back into the mold to give me a nicer edge when the mold comes out. All right, press it in, make sure, let's hope, let's keep our fingers crossed, because this one, like I said, has been giving me trouble. And these are not as easy to unmold as the light gray ones because this itself is stiffer. So we're going to very gently press down with my paintbrush. Ooh, okay. I have to say, except for that tip right up there, this came out pretty well. So I'm gently patting it with my paintbrush to get the mold to stick together. Sort of like ripped a little bit. Okay. So now, earlier I told you how you can cut these paper molds before you put them on there. And what I'm going to do for the side right here, I'm going to be putting it on the side right here, is I am going to be cutting this piece out. With my X-Acto knife. Wiggle. Okay. I am going to be taking some of this heavy gel medium and putting it all over here. Oh, that's a little much. On top of this, because I think it reaches here. And then, see, they crack sometimes, but that's going to be okay. I'm laying it down over here. Move this out of the way. Let's see if I can get this more in frame. These little ends went on both of these pieces right here. And then I am, let's get this out of the way. I am bending this piece down. Gently, gently, gently. Okay. Then I am going to take this little piece that I cut off from the mold, butter it, and put it right here. And press it down. Now, I think you might be able to see that it's cracking a little bit there, right here. So I'm going to take, now this was the thing I used on the other side. I'm going to take this knife, box cutter, and just because the mold is going to dry, and if I don't support it, it's going to fall over, bend over, and I don't want that to do that. So I'm just going to put that just like that under there, and then I am going to add, far too much, just a little bit of this gel medium for the cracks. Now I had a little too much gel medium there. This is the one I put through. Okay. Now I also add this gel medium to, if any of these dried and they cracked a little too much, I add it to that just so that when I paint it, when I give it its coat of gesso, it'll look smoother, like there's not such a big crack. Now I'm done with the construction, the basic construction of this. What I wanted to say before we get to the painting portion of this is you can construct this obviously any which way you want. You can use your molds any which way. Different molds if you have it. See what looks good. Experiment. Make some pieces. One of the ways I do it is I make some pieces of my molds and I just fiddle around with them a little bit to see how they would fit and how they would go together. So you can get different molds than these. You don't have to get the exact ones I used. I just put it down there so everybody could see which ones that I got. Now I'm going to go through as this is drying and making sure this touches. I might have to add a little of this stuff to it very gently. But the next time, but we are pretty much done with the construction. You, like I said, you use the molds you want. If you only want to do half of it with molds and leave the other half where you can put other decorative pieces, that's really up to you. I am making this primarily, I think, as of right now, it'll depend when I get to painting, to be like a golden frame that I can put greenery on very gently. If I do it, I'll show you how I do that. But again, it has to see. I'm now done with construction. I'm happy with it. I'm going to, go around and make sure there's contact with the board. If there's any cracks or if there's any holes where the mold lifted up and it doesn't have contact with the frame, I'm going to put in some of this or some wood glue, whatever, depending. And I'm really going to let it dry. So the next time I see you, this will all be painted black and we can figure out what we're going to do to finish it. I finished and I waited for it to dry, all the mold pieces, and then I used some black gesso and I gessoed the whole piece so it was black. And I have to tell you, trying to get all the white spots is very interesting. It takes a while to get all the white spots. And then before the gesso even really dried, I just felt like doing something to see if a rust finish would look good. I used this Deco Art Americana and cinnamon stick, and I put it around. I dabbed, and then I spread and dabbed and spread, and that was coming out really nice. And then I went to my Luminaire paints, and I have this in Sunset, and I don't know if you're gonna, it's called Sunset Gold. I don't have a lot of it. And while everything was still wet, I started to put this on top of it as a glaze, and I realized I was having so much fun that I have to show you what I'm doing. So before this whole thing gets done, I just wanted to show you what the colors are. And I have to tell you, okay, you don't need any kind of painting experience to do this. I am just taking the paint and slapping it on. I'm not trying to get a full coat on every little thing. I'm not painting it like I want one coat coverage like I did with the gesso. I'm just putting it on and letting the colors happen as they do. I'm using a poor paintbrush, but then all of my paintbrushes pretty much look the same. And I'm just sort of slapping the paint on. I don't know this painting technique, but I do know that I am having fun. And so if you are not a crafter, quote unquote, or unsure, you saw how I made the molds. You saw how I put it together. That isn't really hard. You do a couple of molds and you're an expert. You get some of the glues. And remember, you can use these molds for a lot of things. And this color combination is just the one I'm using. I may put another coat of paint on this, another coat of another metallic gold on this, a brighter one than the ones I've been using. I don't know. But I am just having fun and using up this sunset gold on the, because I didn't have a lot of it. I just had a little on the bottom, maybe not using it all up. But I'm not going for complete coverage here. Just having fun. So don't let painting intimidate you. If you have different paints than I do in different colors, if you want to make this a solid color, go ahead. Just, don't limit yourself. I'm just trying to get some of the edges because they can be seen, and I'm getting paint all over my arm. See? Oh, can't see. I can't get it there. Don't let what you might consider not painting experience stop you in this. I am not doing anything that hard, just smashing on paint. So, and I'm doing it off the camera and you can't see it. I think all in all, and I'm going to continue to play with this a little bit here and there. I'm letting the black show through. I'm letting some of the rust paint show through. I am not having a full coverage. I'm trying to give it as much color combination that I can. I'll take some, let's see if I can raise it up a little bit so you can see more of it. The swirls look especially nice going around. Oh, I really enjoy all the combinations of the molds that I've used. And this is going to be a really pretty piece hanging up on the wall. I'm going to see if I can add some greenery to it, and you'll see what the finished piece looks like once I'm done. So, however you decide to paint your piece, have fun with it. Really, choose your colors. If you mess up, it's paint. You can paint it again. You can paint your hands. It's just a fun little project. And look how pretty this is when you're all done. I know that I can't show you the whole thing in screen, but you will see pictures of it at the beginning of the video. So until I see you again, have fun creating beauty.